All right, y'all. I just want to talk briefly on Luke 4 and verse and we'll start at verse 21 just to get some context. This is where Christ goes into the synagogue. Uh-oh. This is where Christ goes into the synagogue and grabs the book of Isaiah, quotes a prophecy. He says this prophecy is fulfilled this day. People get a little upset, doubtful. We'll get into this though. Luke chapter 4 and verse 21. It says, "And he began to say unto them, This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. And all bear him witness and wondered at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, Is not this Joseph's son? How is this joker talking about he done fulfilled this or this being fulfilled? How is he speaking like a prophet? Or how was he claiming this position and you just Joseph's son? You're just Joseph's son. But understand, he's back in his hometown. Watch what he says here. Verse 23, it says, "And he said unto them, Ye will surely say unto me this proverb, Physician, heal thyself. Whatsoever we have heard done in Capernaum, excuse me, do also here in thy country." So we know understand that Capernaum is not his country. All right. So he says in your hometown, do that stuff that you was doing over there. You know, all that stuff we heard about that you were doing. Heal yourself. Do some kind of miracle in your own country, like you were doing over there. Watch what Christ comes back and says. Verse 24, and he said, Verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. No prophet is accepted. He's with this statement, you see a rejection. He's understanding, or we should understand that reading is that, he's being rejected. He feels a sense of rejection from his own people. That now they need a sign and a great wonder. Watch what he says here, though. Verse 25, he says, But I tell you of a truth, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heavens were shut up 3 years and 6 months, when great famine was throughout all the land. Now, I understand what he said now. He said, there's not a prophet, no prophet is accepted in his own country, and he's now giving he's going back to an example of a prophet being rejected using an instance with Elijah. He says, but verse 25, but I tell you a truth, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heavens were shut up 3 years and 6 months, when great famine was throughout all the land. Elijah was during a time of great famine throughout all the land. Verse 26, but unto none of them Elijah sent. All right, so throughout the land of Israel, Elijah wasn't sent to any of these people. He wasn't sent to no Israelite during this great famine. But unto none of them Elijah was sent, save unto Sarepta, a city of Zidon, unto a woman that was a widow. He was sent to this city, a city of Zidon, to this woman that was a widow. And I think it's in 1 Kings 17. 1 Kings 17, and this is where, if you're not familiar with it, this is where Elijah was fed by, initially he was fed by ravens, and then once the brook dried up, he was told to go to this widowed woman who was a Gentile. All right, that was not of the land of Israel, from the city of Zidon. And we understand this because the whole context of this is that a prophet is not accepted in his own country. He gives an example of Elijah going to a widowed foreigner. But before that, like I just mentioned, he got fed by ravens. Let us not forget that a raven is an unclean animal. He used an unclean animal to feed Elijah. Let us not forget Peter had a dream of a cloth coming down full of unclean animals and was told to rise and eat. And we understand that Peter, you should understand that that dream was about the Most High cleansing unclean people with this whole incident with Peter going to deal with Cornelius. But we see a foreshadow of that, thousands, hundreds of years before that, with Elijah being fed by ravens. And then later, the next stage, he had to go and be fed by an unclean person. He had to sup with an unclean person, just like the story of Cornelius, where Peter goes in to sup with an unclean person. And we see Christ, again, let's go back to the context of why he's bringing these things up. Christ is saying, no prophet, y'all have rejected me. And he said, listen, no prophet is accepted in his own country. We see how the Most High, we see how the Father used an unclean raven and was sent Elijah to this Gentile woman to be fed. And another lynch, just to give a little more meat on that. That unclean woman, a Canaanite woman, was told that she had her last little meal before she died. And she had to make this little meal into a little cake. She said, I'm about to make me a cake and I'm going to just lump over and die. But she was told to give that cake first to Elijah. And in her obedience came abundance. And one would wonder, well, why he didn't send him to an Israelite? It's a precept. It's a correlating verse in Ezekiel that says, had I sent him, I think it's Ezekiel. Hold on one second. Ezekiel 3:12. Maybe 6. Yeah. Ezekiel 3:6, it says, not to many. Let me start at verse 5. It says, for thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of an hard language, but to the house of Israel. Not to many people of a strange speech and a hard language, pretty much Gentiles. I ain't sent you to Gentiles. I sent you to the house of Israel. I tell to Ezekiel 3:5. He said, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto thee. They would have listened. See, the Father already knows that if I would have sent Elijah to his own people, to a stiff-necked, hard-hearted, adamant stone, strong forehead, strong forehead as an adamant. Like if you had been sent to them folks, and Elijah would have told, man, well, feed me first. He would have been sent to one of our sisters, man. He would have been sent to one of the daughters of Sarah. Feed me first, and then you can die. Man, please. You think she wouldn't have gave him that cake. Wouldn't have gave it to him. So he sent him to that Gentile woman. Let's go back to Luke, because he's not finished. Let's go back to Luke. Luke chapter 4 and verse, what was that, 26, 27? Let me see here. He says in let's go to verse 27. It says, and many lepers were in Israel in the time of Eliseus, who was Elisha. I used Elijah with the incident with the woman with the meal. And then, once he fed her, the meal never ran out. And Elisha had an incident also with the oil, and the oil never. But anyway, let me not veer off. And verse 27, and many lepers were in Israel in the time of Eliseus or Elisha, the prophet, and none of them were cleansed, saving is except, none of them were clean except Naaman the Syrian. All right, and if you can read that in Second Kings, maybe Second Kings about chapter 5, chapter 6. You can read that story there, but this is a Syrian soldier commander that was sent by the Assyrian king, I think it was King Aram, to go down and be cleansed by Elisha. And it was a little faith issue there, even with them, but eventually he got cleansed and glorified the Father. And glorified the Most High, wanted to serve and understood. He made a statement that now I know that there's only one God, and that God is in the land of Israel. Or something like that. I might have butchered it a little bit, but go and read that story. Verse 28, and it says, and all they in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath. Okay? And this is how you know you're teaching. Like, if your teaching is aligning with this, it's going to make Israelites, it's going to make them mad. It's going to turn them to wrath. And rose up, verse 29, and rose up and thrust him out of the city and led him unto the brow of the hill whereon their city was built, that they might cast him down headlong. So they tried to they pretty much, took him to the edge of the hill and tried to throw him off the cliff. Tried to throw Christ off the cliff. And a lot of us can't even admit, it's hard for an Israelite to admit that we killed Christ. It's hard for us to admit that. But if we had it our way, we would have killed him in Nazareth. We would have killed him in his hometown. We need no Romans around. He tried to kill him before crucifixion. So I want us to be, even though this may be clear for some, a lot of our brothers and sisters will have a hard time with this, especially in Israel. It's going to be hard to chew. And they gonna try to wiggle their way out and but what is this? Is that woman really a Canaanite? Is that? And just do the research, Israel. Just do the research. Don't listen to what I'm telling you. Go in, find out where that place is. Go read the accounts, and come to some methodology. Come to your own understanding. Again, we all have to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. I pray this thing was a blessing and edification for someone. Israel, y'all be blessed.